Thank you for watching in any arena. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's get into it.
So we got, again, these Pac-12. It's been a big thing here recently when it comes to just overall, you know, team switching conferences. So we've
Yep.
seen that Texas has signed up. Texas and Oklahoma have signed up to go to the SEC. I think that makes a lot of sense. They're both in the Southwest, so to speak, and it makes sense. I don't see that being a problem. Everybody wants
Mm-hmm.
to play with the big dogs. I don't have a problem with them going to the SEC. Now we see that USC and UCLA are leaving the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
For me, logistically and from a geographic standpoint, it does not make a lot of sense. I mean, literally, they're going to be traveling, to pretty far to get to those games where they're playing those Big Ten teams. You do have some strong teams in the Big Ten, so I see a conference matchup between Ohio State and USC. We've seen some classic games in the past, back in the BCS days between USC and Ohio State. So I do see those being big games. I imagine that a Michigan UCLA conference game is going
New
to be
rivals,
huge.
man. New
It's going
rivals.
to be huge. But what do you think about them leaving the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten overall?
I, I, great question, honestly, and I really think it boils down to money and TV time. When I think about the Pac-12, and I'm going to be completely candid, I do not watch the Pac-12 football games. They either come on too early or they come on too late. And
Yeah,
most of the top tier talent is here on the East Coast. The SEC is the most powerful conference, and so you think about Oklahoma making the transition to the SEC, and I think Texas is going to make the transition to the SEC as well. And so you think about schools like that that are making those power plays that have really rich history. I
mhm,
think it was beneficial for UCLA and USC to go ahead and make the move to the Big Ten. I don't think they're necessarily ready to compete with the SEC talent, but the Big Ten is a really great conference for football as well. They have rich history. You have
mhm,
Penn State, you have Michigan, you got Michigan State, you have Ohio State. So there are going to be some very good football to watch once that transition has been made. But also too, from a recruitment perspective, is big
yeah,
because as an athlete, football player, I'm just going to use football as an example. My goal is if I know that I have the potential to make it to the NFL, my goal is to get on TV as much as possible. Like,
right.
and when you're in a Pac-12 and you don't get that exposure like that, um, these universities are missing out on top tier talent. Let me give you an example.
Mhm,
You have a quarterback from Clemson, forgot the kid's name, from California. Back in the early 2000s, 90s,
yeah,
USC, if there was any top tier talent in California, Matt Barkley, like they were not leaving their state. They were going to USC,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and USC had a really great football program. But
right.
now you have people like the cat that came over from California to Clemson to
Trevor
play
Lawrence.
football. No, not Trevor Lawrence. There's another quarterback that was his predecessor. I can't remember. Light skinned cat. Can't remember his name.
Mm.
Yeah, he's huge. I think he's like 6'5",
Are you talking
six
about?
six.
Are you talking about this playing now,
You know what?
DJ
Yeah, yeah,
Ukulele?
yeah. Let me. Yeah, yes, yes. He's from
Okay.
California, bro. He's from
Yeah,
California,
ukulele.
and
Well, okay. I will say that we're seeing that a lot more now with in all conferences. Guys that are going to a school that either already has a name and has a presence, or going somewhere where they can make a name. Um, Ben Simmons in college basketball going to play for LSU, whereas he was a national championship for Montverde Academy, and who had one of the greatest high school
that's in Florida, right?
back. well, yeah, it's in Florida, but they had one of the greatest backcourts of recent times in high school with him and D'Angelo Russell in the same backcourt at one point in time for Montverde Academy. So you see guys going to schools that geographically or by name wise are not the biggest here
Mhm.
lately. I will also say that when you said the Pac-12 doesn't get the type of exposure, I will argue that they do. I think part of the thing about leaving the Pac-12 is that the competition. So the top tier of the Pac-12 is, light years ahead of the bottom tier of the Pac-12. When you look at,
Mhm.
I mean, Utah has emerged as a solid football program over the past
Oh,
couple of years,
they've always had a
but
solid football program.
yeah, but when you look at some of the other teams that are in the lower tier of the Pac-12, it hurts the strength of schedule when you're trying to make the playoffs now
Mm.
if you
Mm.
have one or two losses in the Pac-12, which I would, most teams are going to take a conference loss at some point. Like the days of seeing teams go undefeated for a whole season just aren't there anymore. But you see a lot more one and two loss teams make the playoffs. And I think the benefit of going to the Big Ten is that if you do have those losses, hopefully those losses are to other teams that are ranked high and have a
Mhm.
great strength of schedule, and you still have that opportunity to make the college football playoff. Whereas if you're Oregon or USC and you lose to your in-state rival in Oregon and Oregon State, which is very possible in that quote unquote Civil War game, or you lose to the other juggernaut in say Oregon losing to USC, it's very hard for them to get into a 14 playoff because you've
Mhm.
got, usually two guaranteed seats for the SEC potentially. And
Yep.
you've got a Big Ten team that's likely going to make it in Ohio State. And then there's always a sleeper, whether it's, a UCF or a team like that could potentially get in with a great record, or
Mhm.
Cincinnati, as we
Natty.
saw last
Mhm.
year. So I think the benefit is that you play a tougher strength of schedule. Your guys got to get up and compete every week, whereas you might not see that with some of the games now, like them playing a Cal.
Mhm.
that doesn't really help a strength of schedule. No disrespect to
Cal.
Cal, but they haven't
Yeah.
put out a great
Yeah.
product in the past couple of years.
Washington
So
State.
yeah,
Washington. Yeah. I
yeah.
see what you're
So
saying. So back to the travel component. How do you think that's going to impact the athletes in regards to their preparation from flying from the West Coast to the East Coast? Because a lot of those, well, you know what? No, not that bad because a lot of those uh um Big Ten teams are in the Midwest, so the travel may not actually be as bad as I think it would be.
the travel will be bad. I mean, you're gonna have on any given 2 or 3 week stretch, you might have to travel to Wisconsin and then go to Ohio the next week, or to Michigan or Maryland, who's in the
Right.
Big Ten. So you might have a week where you're playing in Maryland and the next week you're playing in Wisconsin. But I think that overall, the we see college basketball players do it all the time, and they make it work. It just really, I think, more so challenges the student portion of being a student athlete than anything else. There's ways to build in the travel time so that it doesn't impede on, the success of the game. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens over the next couple of years. A lot of people are saying that eventually we'll see one or two conferences that are big conferences with a bunch of teams. They play the best teams, and whoever makes it out of those conferences make the playoff. Um,
Mm.
but that leads to a different point